Hello everyone, this is Nick Corrie from Solvexia, and we're excited to welcome you to the webinar this morning, or this evening if you're in Australia. We've got people joining us from all over the globe, not only South Africa, but also Australia and the UK, so welcome to all. We're lucky to have with us Avsharn Bachoo, who's Chief Technology Officer at the Professional Provident Society based in Johannesburg. Avsharn's going to be talking to our practice head in South Africa, Bram Meyerson, about PPS's digital transformation and their experience using Solvexia. We'll then follow this up with a short demo of the system. There'll be a Q&A session after the demo, so please post your questions as we progress through the webinar, and hopefully we'll have time to deal with a few then. So without further ado, I'll hand over to Bram and Avsharn now to take you through their journey that they've had with Solvexia.
Thank you for a moment. Avsharn, thank you very much for making time this morning to share your vision and experience with us. Without further ado, let's kick off. You are the CTO of the Professional Provident Society. Please could you tell the audience about PPS and your role in particular?
Thanks, Bram. Firstly, PPS is the largest financial services company in South Africa. It operates under the ethos of mutuality. This means that all profits are allocated to members on an annual basis through their profit share account. My role as the CTO is to look after, firstly, applications. These are all applications throughout the group. To look after IT infrastructure. That includes our data centers, servers, storage, networks, etc., as well as data for the group.
Thank you very much. Avsharn, what led you to embark on a finance transformation initiative?
Firstly, there's a bigger picture whereby we are transforming PPS from a traditional broker-based organization into a digital organization. And the finance transformation fitted into that picture. During the last few years, it became evident that we were drowning in spreadsheets and processes that were being performed manually each month by actuaries, accountants, and other finance staff. These staff were struggling to meet deadlines and had legitimate concerns over the quality of their data and lacked any real transparency or audit trails for the information that they generated. We really needed, what we really needed were tools to automate their repeatable data-intensive processes and to help them meet their KPIs and KPAs in a very controlled manner.
Right. And I understand that these staff work under immense pressure, particularly around month ends and deadlines, and production schedules are challenging.
Absolutely, there are always tight deadlines. It's a boiler pressure intense environment. So there's absolutely crucial deadlines at any point in time, from batch cutoffs to the cutoffs and strict timelines that need to be met.
And I also understand that to add to the challenge, much of your Australian operation is run out of this Parktown campus.
Absolutely. So although we have a separate business that's running in Australia, much of the back-end operations are run from South Africa, from Johannesburg in South Africa. Those operations include things such as our call center, our finance operations, and some of the underwriting all happens in South Africa.
And we've discussed in the past that different banking systems and regulatory requirements put additional requirements and overheads on the shared staff.
Yeah. Absolutely. Look, it's truly a juggling act, whereby we have to meet at certain times both South African as well as Australian requirements. So we need to have very strict protocols in place. In fact, the Australian staff work at night to keep the call center up and running, whereas the actual administration and operations happens during South African business day.
Right. Avsharn, why did you choose Solvexia as as the technology to underpin this efficiency drive?
Look, selecting a partner or a vendor is probably one of the most nerve-wracking but crucial activities that we have to undertake. When I'm selecting a vendor, I'm selecting a partner that I trust to work with in a very professional way. And there are a number of things that I look for. For example, the expertise that a partner has, how flexible they are to changes, because we're very, very dynamic business, requirements change all the time. I looked at customer references, testimonials, so those are why we chose.
And you selected Solvexia. Clearly, you had in mind some early benefits realizations. What were the initial benefits that you anticipated?
Well, Bram, by integrating cloud technologies with robotics-enabled automation, we're able to free up those expensive resources that I mentioned earlier, so that they can interpret the data rather than spending time on very mundane tasks. These technologies, along with analytics powered by big data, are the key to success of any financial organization. On a practical note, we also had a key staff member that was leaving. So we wanted to automate some of the tasks that this particular staff member that the staff member performed. So just for interest, we had a lady by the name of Maria that was leaving us. And much of the IP was stored in Maria's head. So we needed to remove some of that IP from Maria's head and store it in a process or a tool that could be repeated time and time again without having a key person dependency.
Right, excellent. And 6 months down the track, what actual benefits have been achieved, and what milestones have been delivered?
Well, Graham, to date, we have 6 processes automated, and we have another 7 in the pipeline. From a technology perspective, we have been able to migrate from our shadow IT UDAs onto Solvexia's enterprise platform and hosted SQL environments. We've had constraints with Microsoft Access, as well as large Excel workbooks. Further, with the help of Solvexia and Quantometrics, we have automated a number of month-end and weekly processes, reducing the pressure on our operational finance team. This will allow us to scale our business without ramping up on headcount, which is a huge plus for us. Our finance team supports both our local as well as our Australian operations, as I mentioned earlier.
Yes, that's very interesting. And just coming back to your comment around the technology constraints now in terms of opening up large spreadsheets, having been involved in some of these processes, understand that these spreadsheets evolve over time and have up to 1 million rows of records and take literally 5-10 minutes to open up.
Absolutely.
The experience on hosting those on the Azure platform, has that sped up the process?
Yeah. Look, some of these spreadsheets are stuck with legacy macros embedded in them, as well as certain versions of Excel. So at any point in time, it could take 5 to 15 minutes to open up these Excel spreadsheets. Coupled with that problem, some of those spreadsheets were stuck in certain versions of Excel, which also opened up a further security risk for us.
Right.
So there were a number of issues embedded with that specific business problem.
Sure. And then an interesting problem needed to be solved. And I recall you calling me into your office, set up a meeting in November last year, 2018, to our extremely automated request. What was the business challenge at the time?
Yes, I recall that, Bram. So we had a case of human error. And then what happened was that somebody from the finance team made incorrect payments to our brokers, which, as you can imagine, is a massive problem. Thereby, I gave you a call, and just to recap on that experience, Bram and his team did an as-is assessment of the current situation that was very human intense, and they proposed an automated solution to try and reduce our human dependency. And the solution was assessed and deployed in under a month. And to date, we haven't had a single human error in that specific space, and all broker payments are done on time, and absolutely accurate payments are done.
Excellent. So Nick, when we hand back to Nick shortly, Nick's going to go through a demo of a process based on that challenge. Clearly, for confidentiality reasons, we can't expose that specific process and the data, but we have a similar process that we're actually going to run through. Avsharn, now we've been working together since the middle of last year, and as you mentioned, 6 processes have been implemented, and another 7 are in the backlog. There have been some challenges along the way. What have been some of the barriers to introducing Solvexia into your environment, and how were these overcome?
Look, when it comes to barriers, I think the first thing to do is to work with staff members, have one-on-ones, and staff members are naturally anxious whenever you introduce new technologies, specifically around process automation and robotic process automation. So one of the first barriers is to have one-on-ones with staff to build their confidence in the solution, to ensure that they ultimately become your champions. So it's very important to have staff buy-in, people buy-in, and introduce the whole concept as part of the internal culture.
Right. And did you have any pushback and concerns from staff that the robotic automation would replace them in their jobs?
Look, staff did naturally raise some concerns, but I think with the one-on-one sessions that we had with the staff, those concerns were killed almost immediately. And look, one of the things that we did was that we started small and then we went big. We started with small processes that we automated so that staff could see the benefits. Staff could see that human error will start to be reduced and then be eliminated. So it was a case of starting small, building confidence with staff, thereafter introducing more processes.
And you mentioned to me that the process that you described, which was fixing the challenge that occurred as a result of human error. When that was automated, that actually gave members of that team confidence that the technology was actually going to assist them in the roles that they play.
Absolutely. Look, overall, the buy-in has exceeded our expectations from the staff side. Initially, staff, like I said, were a little bit suspicious, but as more and more processes started to be introduced, they could naturally see the benefits. And at this stage, they are becoming national champions for us. We get queries from staff and as well as from other areas of the business where this hasn't been introduced, as to things that can be, as to processes that could be automated in their space.
Right. So we started in operational finance, and what are your future plans for Solvexia?
Look, for future plans, there are, firstly, we've had a number of requests from the business. Being PPS Insurance, we look after a long-term life insurance business as well as a short-term insurance business. So we've got requests from our short-term business to automate some of the underwriting processes. We've got requests from around reports and how we can automate reports. We've got ideas that we're looking to implement on the invoice side, so that when invoices come through from on emails, they can be scanned, and then invoices can be generated. So those are the things that we are thinking about for 2019,
right.
and it's part of our digitization and digitalization drive.
Right. Excellent. Avsharn, we also, outside of operational finance, working with some of the actuaries. So perhaps you want to mention some of that work.
Yeah. Look, for the actuaries, once again, there are a number of manual processes that our actuaries are looking at automating. Many of the actuarial processes are also legacy processes, and we're looking at fast tracking and automating many of the manual tasks and processes. We're also looking at other projects on the HR side to potentially automate certain letters and certain statements that go out. We're looking at, we've also got some data plans around data migration. Besides data migration, we're also looking at automating our vendor onboarding, looking at Solvexia to assist us in that space as well. So looking at a number of plans that we've got on our roadmap for 2019.
Right. Well, thank you very much for sharing your experiences and your vision with us. And I hope there are some questions coming in, which we'll address at the end. And I'm now going to hand back to Nick Corrie in London, who is going to go through a quick demo of a process similar to the one that Avsharn described.
Thank you, Bram, and thank you, Avsharn. Yeah, so we've got a demo process here that's loosely based on the one that Avsharn has been talking about. The best way to show and describe a process is actually to show it to you via the designer view in Solvexia. So I'm going to log straight into this. It's a cloud-based system, as you've seen. So I'm just logging on here. Excuse me whilst I can't talk and type at the same time, so I'm just logging in there. So this process, when we log into the design view, you can see here, this is the design pane that a process designer sees. So for both Solvexia designers, but also people obviously in-house as well. So at PPS, as we've talked, there's various processes that have been created there. Some of them actually been built by people at PPS who are being trained up in this environment. So if I open this process, initially when a process is created, it's a blank slate. Here you can see the process definition. And really what this is doing is it's taking a couple of files which are extracts from the from some PPS administration systems, and it's then applying a set of rules and doing some lookups to create a payment file at the end. So a relatively simple process, but as Avsharn has mentioned, the scope for errors is there when you've got a manual process that is creating a payment file. So as you can see in group 3 here, one of the really important parts of this process is a whole series of validations that happens, and these are relatively simple. In this particular case for the demo, we're just checking that the right file has been uploaded for the date that's been selected. It then applies a set of rules and does some lookups to another file that's provided to the system, which is a list of the brokers that are going to be paid. And then it creates a payments file from a template that exists on the system there, puts the payments into it, and then gets some trend data to help the person signing this off to view that. And then finally, at the end of the process, before the files are made available to the person running this process, we have a confirmation step. This is a sign-off, so it can be configured to go to any number of people within the organization, or indeed with third parties if that's what your process needs, so that they'll receive an email and they'll get to see the files that's been produced and get to sign it off before that's authorized to go ahead to the next step. So this is what the process looks like in a design view, but from the point of a view of the person running it, we'll go into what we call a subscriber view. So this is a much simplified version of the process, just exposing the elements that a person that's running the process needs to know about. So obviously the name of the process, a description of it, and then you can see here that there's some placeholders for the files. So there's a lookup file of recipients. So this is a reference set of recipients that need to have payments. So the file might not change every time the process is run. So it's optional whether to upload that or not. And then we've got two trial balance extracts from internal systems. So we've got some dummy data here, but obviously at PPS, these are files which are being extracted or available to the end users to run. So just to show you how an end user goes and loads files into here, I'm going to just drag from my desktop here a few files into here. So I'm gonna drop in to the Namibia box, this file here, and for South Africa, this one here. Now I've deliberately actually put in a file for the 14th of February there in Namibia. So that's actually an old file. So I'm simulating a mistake happening here. And we'll see what happens with the process. So having uploaded the files, I'm going to click on next. And that then takes me to the next input that's provided by the user, which in this particular case is a date. So typically the end of the week for which they're running this process. So with the data that we've got, we're running this for the 21st of February. They set that and then everything's ready. They click on go on this button here to start running the process. And at this point, we get a graphical representation of this digital production line within Solvexia. So you can see as I ran it, each of the steps as they were executed turned green. But it's very obvious here that something hasn't quite worked out. There's a red box here, and it's a decision control step with a title there. Check if the data is correct for the Namibia file. If you remember, we uploaded a file that had the incorrect dates in it. So that's gone red, and we've got some feedback here given to the user saying it's an invalid date. The reporting date is 21st of February. But the Namibia file data is 14th of February. So at that point, it's stopped the process. It's published that message there to the user, and you can see there are no files available. So, I mean, obviously they then have to fix that problem. So to fix the problem, we'll create another run here. We'll go back to our files, and we'll drop in the correct file from the Namibia, so the 21st of February. So I'm just dropping that file in there. I don't need to change the South Africa file because that one was fine. Click on next again and still use that date and then run the process again. So here we've fixed one of the input files and we started running the process again. And as you can see, it's now got a green tick against those particular checks and everything's looking okay. All these different steps have run, and we're now stopped at a box here for the email confirmation. This is the sign off. So as you can see, the process will just stay there running, and this is running in the cloud, so it's not consuming anything on the person's desktop. They can in fact close the browser, they can carry on with other work. And in the meantime, someone in the organization has received a sign-off approval request. So that's been sent to a test email account that I'm using for this demo. And you can see here that at 9:23 UK time, I've received a message saying that a sign-off is required. Nick Corey sent you a message via Solvexia. Click on this link. So obviously this would be sent to someone else rather than the person actually running the process, but I'm just simulating this for now. So I click on that link, and this opens up a page which has been designed by the process designer. So they've put in some wording here saying, please confirm the attached weekly payments. And we've also pulled out some data from the process into here as well. So we've given a bit of a summary as to the trend of the payments. So we're saying that the South Africa payments for this week is up 25% compared to last week, and Namibia is up 33%. So just a little bit of information there. Immediately that's going to help someone to decide whether to sign this off or not. The other thing that's present is the file itself. So this is with the designer has chosen to attach this payments file to the sign-off request. We can click on download to have a look at that file and open it. So in this particular case, we've chosen Excel as the format, but obviously Solvexia can handle all sorts of different file formats that might have been published to this approval step. It might have been a PDF or a CSV file or something like that. So we're just going to open the file that's been produced, and you'll see, I mean, it's not particularly exciting, but it's a list of payments that need to be made to the various brokers, and we've just put in some dummy broker names there, obviously, and these are the amounts that would need to be paid. So this is a file that is then processed downstream, potentially by a banking system or some other system, to make a payment to those brokers. So someone approving this can have a look through, they can do some checks on that, make sure it looks sensible. But we've also included some trends in here as well. So not only are we showing the total amount for the week that we've just run it, which is the 21st of February for both South Africa and Namibia, but we're also showing the trend over time. So this might be important, because if the person reviewing this all of a sudden sees that, you know, the payment amount is 3 times more this week than it was last week, and it's just a big spike, then hopefully that will flag off some alarm bells in their head in terms of whether maybe there's something wrong going on here. Maybe there's some duplication in the data. So it's part of the check that needs to be done by the person approving, as well as obviously the automated checks that are in place already. So as an approver, I've had a look at that file. I'm quite happy with it. So I'm going to click on approve and close my browser, and then I'll jump back into Solvexia. So as the person running this process, they can now go in and they can see that that's been approved. Everything's green on the process, and if we scroll down here to the bottom, we can see a message saying that the validation checks have passed, a little bit of informational message about the trend compared to last week, and then the same weekly payments file that we saw in the sign-off has been produced here for download by that person. So they can just click on that link and download that file, and then do whatever else that they need to do with it. Just lastly, one of the very important things about this, as well as the controls and the automation around that, is the audit trail as well. So we can expand the audit trail by having a look at this button here, and you can see that, I mean, obviously this is a demo process, so it's a little bit contrived, the audit trail, but we can go back in time. So for example, to the 11th of March, yesterday, and I can click on a particular run, and I can see what the results were of that run. So I can see that run 24 on the 11th of March actually failed because someone had put in the wrong data. And you can see not only the files that were uploaded, but the results from that process as well. So this gives you an audit trail all the way back in time. So in the case of this particular process, you would be able to go back to prior weeks and see what happened. So that's very important from an audit perspective. If an auditor comes in and says, well, you know, 6 months ago you made these payments to the brokers, can you show some evidence of how that was calculated? And the person in finance would very easily go back to 6 months ago, pick the particular run and show that, demonstrate that to the auditor. Well, these are the files that I put in, this is the processing that happened, and these are the payments that got made. So that's a very quick overview of Solvexia. Hopefully it's given you a flavor for that. Obviously there's only so much that we can show in a few minutes, but we'd be very happy to show you more in-depth demo. There's some contact details at the end of the webinar to get in touch with Bram if you need to do that. So for now, I'm just going to close off this browser session. We'll go back to the slides. And Bram, we were going to now take some questions and answers from the audience. Let me just flick through to that. Okay, great. Bram, we've had a few questions come in during the presentation. I think I'm just going to pick 3 of them because I'm conscious of time here. And the first one is, besides operational finance, are there any other areas of the business where you have deployed Solvexia to assist specialist resources? So I guess, Avsharn, that's a question aimed at you, just about other areas of the business where you've deployed Solvexia to assist specialist resources.
Look, at this stage, we've identified areas that we intend to deploy into. I've mentioned some of them earlier. That includes our short-term insurance business, and it also includes our HR department. So those are projects that we are bedding down as we speak.
And then there's
Right.
the reinsurance.
Absolutely. It's also the reinsurance area. Thanks, Bram. Thanks for that reminder.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Another question here. Okay, is Solvexia rollout part of a broader cloud adoption initiative? So I guess a question here around about other cloud-based services and a general policy or strategy that you might have around cloud adoption. Looks like it's another one for you, Avsharn.
Yeah, the PPS has been recognized as one of the first South African services financial companies to be in the cloud. So becoming a cloud-centric company is within our strategy. We've identified a few cloud providers that will support us going to the future. So absolutely, it's part of our strategy.
Okay, thank you. And last question, I'm conscious of time here. Have you eliminated any risks by implementing Solvexia? Now, obviously, we've mentioned the risks of payments to brokers being incorrect. Are there any others, Avsharn, that stand out?
Yeah, look, the other, coupled with that was the main risk of human error. And look, it's very difficult to get rid of human error. But we found that Solvexia has helped us reduce human error. It's also helped us get rid of key person dependency. So I think those are the 2 that stand out the most in my mind. Just to recap, that's human error and key person dependency.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, listen, everyone. Avsharn and Bram, thank you very much for your participation, and Avsharn, very frank and interesting conversation. We need to wrap up now. Thank you to all the participants that have joined as well. So potentially some of your colleagues couldn't make it today. The webinar will be available as a recording afterwards. And I've finished off here with Bram's details in South Africa, for those of you in South Africa dialing in, if you need to find out more information from him. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Nick.